So we're starting here in line 445 with the subject Dardanidai, which means the Dardanians, or Trojans, if you like. This is a name that the Trojans have, named after one of their early kings, Dardanus. So the Dardanians. And then this word contra, you've seen before, contra plus accusative meaning against. This is just contra on its own, just meaning in turn. So in other words, we've heard about what the Greeks are doing, now we switch to hear about what the Trojans are doing. So the Dardanians in turn, and the main verb is convellunt, they tear down. And then the object of that is touris, the towers. This is the equivalent of toureis in prose, accusative plural, not dative or ablative plural. So they tear down the towers and ac tota culmina, all the roofs, accusative plural, all the roofs of the palace domorum. So grammatically domorum is genitive plural, but I would translate it as singular, so just of the palace. Right, so the Dardanians in turn tear down the towers and all the roofs of the palace. Now, after the semicolon, I would translate this ablative phrase, his telis. Those are both ablative plural. They go together, even though they're very far apart in the sentence. His does agree with telis, so it means with these missiles. And then we have a short subordinate clause, quando ultima cernunt. When, so quando means when, cernunt, they perceive, and then ultima means literally the final things, neuter plural, but in English we might just say the end. So when they perceive the end, in other words, they perceive that it's all over, they're going to die, they're going to lose the war. When they perceive the end, now, yam, now this is in plus ablative, in extrema morte. Now literally that means in final death, but we might say something like at the point of death. They, and here's another main verb, parant, they prepare, to defendere, to defend, and then the object of that is se in the previous line, which means themselves. So just to go over that bit again from the semicolon here, with these missiles, when they perceive the end, now at the point of death, they prepare to defend themselves. Okay, and so we have the que at the beginning of line 448. So, and they, and then the next main verb is de volunt, so they roll down, and the object of that is auratas trabes. Now, aurum is gold, so auratus means gilded, something that is covered with gold. And then the noun is trabes, which means beams, like wooden beams. So they roll down the gilded beams, which are then described in this next phrase, veterum decora alta parentum. So decora means sort of grand, beautiful, stately, something like that. And alta literally means high things, neuter plural, but we might say something like splendors, perhaps, the splendid things. And then you have veterum parentum, which are both genitive plural. So veterum meaning old or ancient, parentum being parents, or I think in this case ancestors more generally. So veterum parentum, of their ancient ancestors. So just to go over that again, from the beginning of line 448, it means, and they roll down the gilded beams, the stately splendours of their ancient ancestors. So these are the Trojans at the top of the palace, right? They're guarding the top of the palace. They're trying to beat off these Greeks who are climbing the ladders. Now, after the semicolon here, we hear about the other Trojans who are at the ground level, right? They are trying to defend the front door from the Greeks who who are attacking it from the outside in their tortoise formation. Okay, so others, and then you have a little ablative absolute here. Mucronibus means swords, and strictis means drawn. So others with their swords having been drawn, or more briefly, with drawn swords, have blockaded, obsedere. Now, this word here, this is another poetic form. In prose, it would be obsederunt. So it's just third person plural, perfect tense. So others with drawn swords have blockaded the fores, the doors, imas, below, or the lower doors. So these are the Trojans downstairs on the ground floor of the palace. So others with drawn swords have blockaded the doors below. Has servant, these they guard. So the verb is servant. Has is the object. It means these, and it's feminine, so it's referring to the doors, right? These they guard. And then you've got an ablative phrase. Denso means dense or close packed. Agmine is a line or a battle line. So denso agmine means in a close packed line, or with a close packed line. So these they guard in a close packed line. Then in the next sentence, animi is the subject. So our spirits, and this is referring to the spirits, the sort of courage, the fighting spirit of Aeneas and the other Trojans who are just arriving on the scene. So our spirits, instaurati. This is perfect passive. It's short for instaurati sunt. So our spirits were renewed, and this is followed by an infinitive, succurrere, to aid, to help. And this verb takes dative, which is why you've got the dative taktis. So our spirits were renewed to aid the dwelling, literally the roofs, but I would say the dwelling. Our spirits were renewed to aid the dwelling of the king. So regis is genitive case, genitive singular, of the king. Which, remember, that's Priam, the Trojan king. So our spirits were renewed to aid the king's dwelling. And, to levare, to lighten or to relieve the viros, the men, or you could say our men, because this would be the Trojans, to relieve our men with our help, auxilio, ablative case, with our help, and to addere, to add or impart, vim. Now vim with a U or a V, it means vigour or strength. And then victis is a PPP, perfect passive participle, and it's dative case, so it means to the defeated. Okay, so I'll just go back over that from the beginning of line 451. So our spirits were renewed to aid the king's dwelling and to relieve our men with our help and to impart vigour to the defeated. Okay, now next little bit here, line 453. Erat here, I would translate as there was, right? There was, and what was there? There was a limen, which is a threshold. So there was a threshold, and kaikai fores, hidden doors. Kaikus can mean blind, or it can mean unseen or hidden. So there was a threshold and hidden doors, and a pervius usus. Now, pervius means traversable, something that can be crossed or entered through. And then usus means something like an access point. So there was a threshold and hidden doors and a traversable access of the halls, so tectorum, genitive plural, of the halls of Priam, so Priami is another genitive, of the halls of Priam, inter se, means within or between themselves. So in other words, there's a kind of door a hidden door that kind of links two bits of the palace together, inter se, links them between themselves. And doorposts, that's postes, artergo, ar plus ablative. Here, artergo means at the back. And then relicti is a PPP, perfect passive participle, having been left behind. So, just to go over that bit again, there was a threshold and hidden doors and a traversable access of the halls of Priam between themselves and doorposts at the back left behind, by which, so qua here is sort of means where or by which, and then the subject is in Felix Andromache, so unlucky Andromache. Remember, she's the wife of Hector, the dead Trojan prince. So he's Priam's son, and then she is Hector is Priam's son, Andromache is Hector's wife. So by which unlucky Andromache, dum, while the regna, the kingdom, grammatically plural, but I would translate it as singular, while the kingdom remained, manebant, or was remaining, you can tell that's imperfect tense from the BA in the middle, while the kingdom remained. Saipius, this is the comparative of saiper, so maybe rather often, right? Rather often, and then the main verb is solebat, was accustomed to ferre se. So ferre means to take, and then the object is se, herself. So rather often was accustomed to take herself in comitata, unaccompanied, ad soceros, ad plus accusative, to her parents-in-law, and she used to lead, trahebat, again imperfect tense. You could also say it used to drag, although I think it's not quite as forceful as that in this context. She used to lead the, and then the object is puerum astianacta, the boy Astyanax. That's a Greek accusative form, astianacta. She used to lead the boy Astyanax to his grandfather, awo, that's dative case, to his grandfather, which would be Priam. So let me just explain very briefly what this means. So basically, Aeneas is outside the palace. He's looking up at the roof. He sees that there are these Trojans sort of desperately throwing all their ancestral treasures and things down at the Greeks on the ladders. You know, they're desperately trying to defend the roof. And Aeneas and his friends think, we need to get up there to help them. Maybe because at the moment the door downstairs is holding firm, so they're not worried about that. They're worried about the people on the roof. The problem is, how do you get up to the roof? Because the front door is blockaded by all these Greeks in a tortoise formation. So Aeneas is thinking, how do I get up there? But luckily, he knows about a secret entrance to the palace. Presumably, this is the entrance, I guess, maybe that links Hector's palace as the prince to Priam's palace as the king. So there's a secret passageway that leads into the palace. Aeneas knows about it, and he can use it to get into the palace and up to the roof to help the other Trojan defenders. So just to go back over that sentence very briefly, there was a threshold and hidden doors and a traversable access of the halls of Priam within themselves or between themselves, and doorposts at the back left behind, by which unlucky Andromache, while the kingdom remained, rather often was accustomed to take herself unaccompanied to her parents-in-law, and used to lead the boy Astyanax to his grandfather. Okay, and we'll do two more lines here. So, a wado means I go out, or in this case, perhaps I climb up. because he's going upwards to the roof. So he's saying, I climb up ad fastigia, literally to the tops. And then you've got a genitive phrase, summi culminis, of the top roof. So literally to the tops of the top roof. In better English, you might say, I climb up to the utmost top of the roof, the very, very top. Unde, from where, and the subject is miseri Teucri, the wretched Teucrians. And remember, these are the Trojans. So from where the wretched Teucrians were hurling, yaktabant, which is imperfect. You can recognize that from the BA. From where the wretched Teucrians were hurling by hand, manu, or with their hands, that's ablative singular, were hurling with their hands there, and the object is their in rita tela. In rita means useless, and tela are missiles or weapons. So again, just to go over that sentence one last time, from the beginning of line 4, 5, 8, I climb up to the utmost top of the roof, from where the wretched Teucrians were hurling with their hands their useless missiles.